failing, and then some totally becoming successful. And the ones that were successful are the ones we clung to, and the ones that didn't work, we just threw them out. I always go back to what Bruce Lee said. He said, use nothing as the way. There really is no path. You just, whatever works, you use it. Whatever doesn't, throw it out.
Hello everybody, my name is Frank Shamrock, the 5-time undefeated Ultimate Fighting Champion. And in this program I'd like to show you how to avoid the takedown, how to defend the takedown, and how to stay on top. And for this, we'll bring Kelly in, my partner Kelly Delonte. We're going to start with showing you the dynamics of a takedown and why a takedown works. That way we can understand it and combat it in the future. So the dynamics of a takedown are that he lowers his level or position and actually attacks or grabs my hips. Taking my hips out from me takes away my balance and my stance, which will eventually get me down. There are 3 parts of a takedown. The first part is impact, and that's usually what gets people down. And the impact in this instance is lowering of the body weight, striking the center of the hips or stomach area, and then pulling out. So you have an impact similar to a punch that pushes the inside of your body out, which disrupts your balance here. So that impact starts like this and actually strikes the body either on the shoulder or the head and pushes through the body like this. So that it takes the hips, blasts them backwards, and begins to fold you down. That's number 1, first part dynamic of the takedown. The second dynamic of the takedown is angles, changing of angles. So after an impact, usually a good takedown will begin moving to either direction, which will disrupt your balance even more. So we have a piece of impact which messes up your stance, and then we usually have them pushing sideways, which further disrupts your body, brings you over to one of the sides. So those are the first 2 dynamics of a takedown. The third dynamic for the takedown is the lifting of the hips. So we have impact, we have angle changes, and now we have lifting of the hips. And all of your throws, all of your body lifts, all of your clinches involve lifting of the hips. So one of the dynamics of the takedown that you really have to avoid is anyone getting their hips underneath yours and actually being able to lift you up. And once you're up in the air, you're done. So anything from the side or any other situation that lifts your hips in the air makes you immediately vulnerable and should be avoided at all times. Impact, angle change, and lifting of the hips are your biggest problems for takedown. The fourth dynamic is trips, and trips are hard to recognize, but they're easy to avoid if you're maintaining a good stance and you're not letting someone manipulate your body with impact, angle changes, or lifts. Trips are easy. They usually follow from one of the first dynamics. So if I get an impact on him and he doesn't go down, then a lot of times I'll just put a leg around him and keep the technique going and push him the rest of the way down. If I get a good lift on him, a good body clench, and I lift his hips, it's really easy for me just to throw my leg under and turn him down, trip him down the rest of the way. So there's 4 dynamics that we're really going to focus in on avoiding the takedown. If you can understand the dynamics and what's happening to your body, then we can start building techniques to combat those. That's where we're going to stay on our feet. That's where we're going to be most effective. Now that we understand the dynamics of a takedown, let's discuss distance and awareness. That'll really begin to give us an idea and a concept of how to avoid the takedown. The thing about distance is if you can touch him or he can touch you, he can get you down with a takedown. That's what you have to understand. Is similar to striking, you have a good stance. If at any time he can touch you or manipulate any contact with your body, he can get you down and get you down very easy. So you have to realize that once I get into a situation where there's touching or there's any kind of contact, I'm vulnerable to a takedown. Now I have to control this distance, and I can control it through striking. I can control it through movement. I can control it through a number of ways, but I have to be aware what he's going to do once this distance is achieved. Now, there's 3 things that he's going to do. First one, he's going to change levels. Similar to striking, he's going to change levels to try and come in and attack my hips. I have to be aware that when that level change comes, a takedown is coming after that. So if we were squared off and I was looking at his body, the second a level change comes, I got to be aware and I got to change position, or I'm going to be very vulnerable to the takedown. The second thing I have to be aware of for the takedown is him reaching into my body. When he reaches into my body, I have to know that he's going to try and grab control of my waist and get inside and grab control of my hips. So punches are easy to see. They're straight. At least good, powerful punches are. Wrestling grabs or clinches, you can see them when they come. They come inside of the body and they reach around it. I have to be conscious of when those come, what's going to come next after it. The third principle for recognizing and being aware of a takedown is his forward motion or his dropping of his body. Once he lets that weight go and drops it on my leg or on my hips or on my body, I'm really vulnerable because he's immediately going to begin bending me backwards. So we got three principles we're working with. The last one is dropping your weight on the body. So go ahead and I just want you to step in and drop all your weight on me and smack me. So this is something that I can see if I'm aware. Watch my piece of energy. He's just going to go boom, and I'm going to drop onto his body. Now that's a little different than just changing the angle, and it's different than reaching inside. So we have three separate techniques that we want to be aware of. All three of those lead to a takedown. So all three of those you've got to be conscious of, and you have to be ready that when he makes his reaction, to either move out of the way or do your secondary counter. Now that we're aware of the takedown, we understand what's going to happen, we can begin to move out of the way. The key to moving out of the way in anything is footwork. We've got a few footwork drills and movement types that'll get you out of the way of that impact of his takedown or the hands reaching or him trying to drop on your body. Similar to striking, anytime he makes a forward motion, he's going to bring one of those principles of takedowns towards me. What I should be doing, what I have to do, just like striking, is I should always be stepping outside of that foot. I should always be trying to get outside of his power. His power is coming straight forward at me, reaching straight forward. I should always be keeping him at 12 o'clock and stepping on the other side of that foot. That way, when he wants to shoot or take me down, he's got to change or turn, or he won't even be lined up with me. So easy, same as in boxing, same as in striking, is the same as in wrestling. Move your foot to the outside. I should always be moving my foot to the outside. So if we were in a stance, and I wanted to strike, and he wanted to wrestle, every time I would step, he would have to counter-step his foot back. And we would always be trying to step to the outside of that foot. It's a simple concept and a simple idea, but it takes him out of his power source. That way, if he comes for me, he's not lined up. He's over here a little bit. That's your first key to getting out of the path of a takedown. Let's do some more feet work and more feet drills to get yourself out of the way of that intention of the takedown. Now that we recognize it, we understand what's going on, we've stepped off to the left. Anytime forward motion comes to me, I'm in danger of a takedown. When that takedown comes, the easiest thing is to move out of the way. So, stepping off to the left, stepping off to the right, moves myself out of his power range. The other thing I can do is, if he reaches for my body, I can move my feet off to the side. And it's just a little foot switch here. When I'm conscious of what's going on, I'm going to propel my hips and my body, and I'm going to cut a little corner and move right out of the way. This is what you would do in boxing, this is what you do in kickboxing, and it's what you do in wrestling. Get out of the way of the angle so that he can't grab these three things that we talked about earlier of him getting you down. A couple drills you can do are simple. Try and touch my leg. That movement, try and touch my leg. That movement is enough to give you the distance to either strike or grab or move again and get out of the way. Simple feet movements will keep you in this position and away from being taken down. If you want to use constant movement or you want to use any of these other principles, pulling, pushing, always be stepping off and always be moving your leg out of the way. Those two simple movements will keep you out of harm's way for most takedowns. The other thing you can do to avoid a takedown is a sprawl. Now, a sprawl is designed, as it sounds, to get all of your hips and body away from the attack and also to drive your opponent into the mat. A sprawl is the best way to stop the impact of a shot. When I see him coming in and he's reached the distance of he's got past my ability to move my feet out of the way, that's when a sprawl comes in. A lot of times I can stop his attention just by moving out of the way, but if he really commits to it or he brings that falling energy to me, I have to do my sprawl. And a sprawl looks like this. We'll do it slow so they can kind of picture it, and then we're going to break it down for them, and then we're going to show them the drill. and make a really complete package here. So when I see the intention and he comes in, my sprawl is I'm going to throw all of my hips back and drop them on the mat so that there's no hips for him to grab control of and try and sweep out from underneath me. So we can do it a little bit quicker now. So the first thing I do when he comes in is I take my weight and I go and I throw it all back and put my hips down. And that'll take the hips away from him so he can't manipulate me and drive all of his weight into the mat. Now I want to sprawl with as much weight on top of him as possible. That way he can't keep driving and pushing towards my hips. I want to actually smash his head into the mat. That's the most effective way. The other thing is, whatever leg he's going for, I want to push that one out as far as possible so he can't grab it. So if he's going to grab this leg, I'm going to try and throw this one back first and as far as possible, and then drop all the weight on his head. Ready? All right. I can stop that forward motion. I don't have to worry about him gaining control of my hips anymore. That's what a sprawl is all about. And again, it sounds just like it is because you're sprawling out, getting everything back and flattening it out. Let's show them the drill. And you know what? Let's do it from the front, and then we'll turn to the side so they can see how your body is. And I'll simulate for you. I'll reach in and try and grab your leg, and you can just sprawl without me getting in there. All right? So here we go. I'll reach in, big sprawl. So look at the back. Hips are completely down. Back is completely curved and arched, and everything up here should be on top of the body and smashing it. That's what a good sprawl looks like from the side. We'll do a little bit quicker. Here we go. Nice. Come back up. Here we go. Nice. There you go. So this is what your drill would look like if you want to drill it and get comfortable with it. Beautiful. Nice. So let's turn this way and give them a couple sprawls so they can see what your body looks like facing this way. You're going to face. I'll just be your guy from the side, like coaching you. So again, good stance, good position. Show them your sprawl. Nice. And look at the body. Chest up, hips are all the way flat on the mat. Everything driving into him should be squished flat on the mat. A couple more. Nice. Where's the breath? Nice. Again, once more. Perfect. So that would be your sprawl drill. If you want to get comfortable at it, get two guys just like we were. Try and touch the leg and work that sprawl. Work the sprawl until it's comfortable, and then you can add a little more intention on it. When that intention comes, you'll find that as you throw back and you drop the weight on, you sometimes ride on top of that person, which is perfect. Ride all you want. Just stay on top and keep your hips out of their hands. So we showed you the sprawl. Get your hips out of the way. I want to show you now how to underhook. Underhook's probably the second best way to avoid a takedown. And what it does, it enables you to get under the arms and lift him up so that he can't get at the hips and pull him out from underneath you, manipulate your body. There's a couple ways you get into underhooks. The easiest one is when he makes that intention and reaches for me, I need to underhook his arms, actually throw them both under and lift him back up so he's equal with me and he's not down here at my hips, messing with my hips anymore. So, two types of underhooks, single underhook and double underhook. Double underhook, of course, is always the best because you have maximum power. But the way you get into it, just like striking, it's a timing piece. So I see his body, I see his intention, he reaches for me. I need to maybe move my hips back a tiny bit and throw those underhooks under. Now we get into a situation where I can lift him up and we can be equal again. And he won't be able to manipulate my hips and body. You can also do your underhooks from the takedown block with the sprawl. So come in, I'll sprawl on you. After I sprawl and get my hips back, I'm going to put my underhooks under here so that he can't do any more damage to me. Now I can keep his body down, or if we go back up, I can manipulate him here or here, where I'm underneath his arms, and he can't get in there and twist me, turn me, change my balance. Underhooks are really good. They take a little bit more awareness and more timing than the sprawl, but they're very effective, and with a good underhook, you can stop anybody's takedown. uses other techniques to stop his initial ascent on the takedown. And one of those is jamming. Stop the takedown before it ever starts. A number of ways you can do it. Of course, the head is the center of all energy and leads everything. So an easy way to stop his takedown is if you see forward movement coming, just push his head anywhere on his head. If you stop the head and push it back, he'll lose all of his forward momentum and his forward energy to coming in here and taking you down. I mean, even if it's something silly, like he's trying to grab me, just pushing his head is going to stop all of his energy. Now, I'm illustrating with a hand. What I like to do is I like to actually jab his head. So if I'm in a situation like this and I feel like he's going to come, I'll actually smack him in the head and take all of his energy, at least the tip of it, and push it backwards, which will stop his step in and stop that energy from coming in. I love to jam the head. It's one of my favorites. I also really like to jab or jam the shoulder. What that does is squares up his body and doesn't enable him to get in that good power stance. His body turns square. So I'll be in a position like this, and if he starts forward motion to me, I'll push his shoulder and turn his body so it's squared up. That way he can't make a good step in on me. Plus, when he's square, I can give him a good crack if I want to. So jamming easy. Start with the head. Push the head up and back. And also you can go to the shoulder, square the shoulder up. That'll stop any forward motion that he's doing. Let's do a couple of shots. I won't jam your head because it's really not necessary. We understand that. Right. But let's do a couple things where I want to jam your shoulder even after you've brought the energy forward. And we'll show him what happens when I hit that shoulder, okay? So go ahead. So it stops all the energy. And for me, it's like a punch. I just turn my body and energy a little bit and put that arm out there, stop that energy before it ever gets going. If he gets in really deep, I'm going to have to go to something else because he's already in that distance of takedown. I got to start wrestling, underhooking, and sprawling. But for the easy one, just stick it out there. Stop him, stop his energy. Then you can reevaluate the situation. That's jamming. Jamming is really effective if you stop the shot before it really starts, right at the initial stages of it. Speaking of jamming, you can also jam with your forearm, your elbow, and jam on the neck and shoulder area. I'm going to show you a couple of those as well. We jam the shoulder up pretty good. We jam the head up pretty good. Now, the distance of that is really long. So I don't really have to, get my hips back when I do that. If I'm going to jam with my forearm, it's half the distance. And while it's a really strong jam, I also have to get the rest of these out of the way, or he may get through it, actually get onto my hips. So if I'm going to jam with my forearm, which I really like, and it's a powerful move, when he passes through that distance, if maybe it's too late for me to get my hand out there, I'll throw my forearm out, and I'll actually hit him with it, almost like I'm trying to elbow him, but with the forearm. As I jam, I have to push my hips back a little bit and give me that extra space so he doesn't get inside. Let's show him a little real-time stuff. I'll get my forearm out there pretty good. So if I see the intention coming, I'm going to jam out, throw my hips back. One singular motion. Put the bone out and jam my hips back. And this creates a little wall here that he kind of runs into. And I have to get my body behind it and support it a little bit. That way he can't pass through it. The good thing about the forearm jam is that it puts me in a position where I can immediately just grab the head and start kneeing, or grab the head and start manipulating his body right away. So jamming with the forearm, it's a little more advanced because it allows the distance to create, but I can get some great secondary moves off of it. Plus, I can stop his shot right away. Another type of jamming or takedown defense is a hip thrust. And it's a jam as well, but in a little different scenario. So when he comes in deep on me, there's several distances we're working with. First one is keep him away. Second one is I'm stopping him here. If he gets in really deep on me and gets to my back leg, I can actually jam him and stop him with my hip. Not allow him to take the hip and control it, but actually hit him with it and hopefully divert his energy coming for my hips. So we'll do it slow. When he comes in here, I'm going to throw my leg back and throw my hip down. So I'm taking my hip and actually hitting him with almost like it's a punch. And I want that impact to thrust and jam him, stop that forward motion. So come for leg in. So I'm going to bam, throw my leg back and throw that hip down and smack him with the hip as hard as I can. I want that impact to be like a good punch and hit him on the shoulder as hard as possible. Let's turn this way with your back this way a little bit and do the same thing. I'm going to try and jam it good where they can see it. Bam! And throw my hip out there as far as I can. Smack him with it. Just take that energy and move it out of the way. Then I can begin my secondary moves and manipulate his body. Let me show you this from the side, this hip thrust. Once I get the energy coming in here and it's come close to my hips, I want to actually take my hip throw my leg back a little bit and just thrust it in there, throw all my energy in and smack him with my hip bone. If you do it right, you'll really crack somebody with that bone and they'll feel it right away. But again, when the energy comes in, I'm going to throw it, bam, out and throw my hip in and down as much as possible. And that'll stop them. Here's a tip for you. If you keep your hand there, when you do your shot, and when you stop the shot, you'll have control of the head. You can push yourself out of the way, create more distance, and be immediately away from that takedown. Or if you want to wrestle, you can just swim inside and go back to wrestling. Either way, with the hand, without the hand, if you get the leg back and the hip down, and you get that timing right and get that jam, it is a very, very effective way for stopping a takedown. Following up the jamming techniques are great techniques called redirection. Jamming is just pretty much for stopping the technique right where it's at. You can also take the energy of that technique and move it to another location so it's not directly affecting you. And it's really easy to do. Again, it just takes a little bit of time, a little bit of practice, and a little bit of know-how. So we get in a situation where he's reaching into my body, trying to get a clinch or trying to get a nice body lock. If I stay here and just fight him with the underhooks, it's okay. But if I immediately move out of the way, I'm going to take all of his energy and spin it off somewhere else. So he won't be able to focus on the balance and the hold necessary to get that good grip. He now has to focus on where his feet are going. So a couple of easy instances are, we'll do it again. Reach in for my body. I'm going to get under for the underhook. Then immediately I'm going to take a big step here to my left and move out of the way. Moving out of the way will enable his energy to keep coming this way. And I can kind of swing him out of the way. Redirect him, if you will. So go ahead and reach into my body. Just a little move. Move him out of the way. If they're reaching for your hands or for your head or anything like this, I can just pinch my arms in and I can move him out of the way and move myself out of the way. Now, we're talking about takedowns in that he's bringing an aggressive takedown towards me, trying to get me down. So I know that there's energy coming towards me. It's my responsibility to recognize it, know what's going to happen, and then divert it somewhere else. We'll give you a couple easy examples. This one with the swim inside. As soon as I swim inside, I immediately want to step out of the way. Even just a little step and step out of the way. Every time he brings the forward energy, I can take a little step to the side, pull my butt out, move out of the way. As long as I'm maintaining this strong stance and structure, I'm going to be able to redirect him really no matter what he does. The other kind of redirection that I can do is when he tries to take me down with a wrestling takedown or a shot, I can actually move that shot out of the way and move myself out of the way. We worked on foot movement, on getting your feet and body out of the way of the initial takedown. Second thing we do is we can take that head and then shoulders and we can redirect him as we move our feet out of the way. So again, it's building on techniques we've already done, but they're just simple additions that's going to take his energy, move it out of the way. Here's our example. I've already learned how to get my feet out of the way. Now I want to get my feet out of the way and move him out of the way while he's trying to come for my hips. So why don't you do like a double leg takedown on me, and I'll move out of the way and show him the technique. So my most important thing about the redirection is that not only am I moving myself out of the way, but I'm pushing his energy off to the side as well. And let's do it in slow-mo for them as well so they can see. So when he comes in, I recognize it. I immediately get my body out of the way, and then secondary, I'm going to push him and get him as far that way as I can. Now, a lot of times he may even get a hold of your foot or be in a position like this. But as long as you got his head and the rest of him out of the way, you can slip your leg out and do other things to get away. Again, we're avoiding the takedown. We don't really want to be taken down, so we're trying to quick, short, efficient methods to get out of that. I want to examine the clinch as another type of takedown so that we understand it better and understand better how to avoid it, get in and out of it. Traditional clinch is, under the head, somewhere in here, under the body. Anything that really gets in the upper body, head and arm, stuff like that is considered a clinch. There are a lot of different varieties. For this one, we'll do, a head here or something underneath like this. The key to avoiding a clinch is not letting someone get those double underhooks and get good control of your body. So, if he wants this, he's going to reach his hands out and try to get underneath my body and get that position of control. Once he's up here or even down low, I'm in a bad position where he can manipulate me really easy. The way I get out of this is I'm always moving my hips out of the way, of course, but I want to learn to swim my arms inside and to get that even position where I'm under, or maybe we're even equal with both having one under. So swimming is an actual technique that you're going to have to learn if you want to keep them off you in the clinch. A lot of people are able to, do this, and you have to move your head to get out of the way of the punches, and they can grab you, and suddenly you're in a clinch situation. You need to know how to get out. Swimming is how you'll get out. Swimming is really easy, and there's a drill and a technique that we do to learn swimming better, and that's called the swimming drill. It's very easy. I'm going to start, let's see, how can we see this here? I'm going to start with one of my hands underneath his, and he's going to start with one of his hands underneath mine. And every time I try and put my hand under his, he's going to swim the other one in so that we're back to the same position again. This is my swimming technique. And anytime someone reaches for me, inside or out, I'm going to have to swim and get control. Now my goal, of course, is to get two under and to reverse the clinch. Even if I'm a striker or I don't want to wrestle, if I'm in a clinch position, I still have the advantage because I can throw, redirect, and get back to my striking stance. So think about that. During your swimming, you may get a clinch that you can act on right away. Swimming is the key to it. Let's try the swimming drill, and we'll do a little bit of movement at the same time so they can kind of get a picture of what it's going to look like. We'll start simple and stay here. Then I'll start stepping out of the way a little bit. We'll make the circle go around. Yeah? Good. This is going to be a good technique for you guys, and we're going to wrap it up into a drill, technique, and live interaction so you'll really get it. So my basic drill is stand here, good stance, nice and comfortable, and I'm going to start swimming inside. Once I get the swim going and it feels good, I got the balance, now I'll take a little step off to my right. And he should follow me so I don't get the two under. Then I can take another step. So once you get inside, or once that distance is closed and they makes a grab for your body, you have to swim. If you don't swim, he's eventually going to get inside, get your body, get control of your hips, your waist, whatever. Once he begins that manipulating of your body, you're very vulnerable to trips. That's what I'll show you next is trips. Anytime he gets my body like this and he starts moving me around, it's so easy for him to stick a leg out and pull me over and trip me. Or bring a leg from the back around and hook around my leg and just fold me over it because he has control of my body. So the one way to avoid trips, of course, is keep swimming. Even if he gets inside and he's able to get control and get the clinch, I still want to watch for these trips, and I just want to pop my hips out and try to keep them away. He's going to continue manipulating me and continue tripping me, and I have to continue to swim inside. I can also try to redirect and push his head out of the way, but let's be honest, if he is inside like this, he's going to have total control. I'm better off swimming inside, getting underhooks, or getting a clinch of my own than I am letting him control my body. After the clinch, you experience a problem of getting thrown. Now, getting thrown is very dangerous because they're pulling your hips over their hips. That's when you get in serious trouble. Most of the throws start from a clinch or clinch-like position, and they pull your hips on top of their own, and they actually move their hips to wherever they want you to go. So the thing you have to avoid is getting split up the center. So the one thing I can't let him do is get inside of me, split my center, and pull me on top of his hip. In any position. This one is probably the most common. Him reaching inside, splitting me, and then lifting my hips up. Pick me up on top of your hips. Once I'm here, I'm done. Once he lifts my hips up in the air, I'm completely out of the situation. So the way I'm going to avoid that is if I feel him getting his hips in close to me, I have to move my hips out of the way and get him off at another angle. And it's real easy to do as long as I keep popping those hips out. I never want to remain stagnant here. I'm always going to keep popping, and swimming inside to get those hips out. Let me show you some other examples of throws and ones that you need to avoid, and avoid letting your opponent get to that position because then you're going to go flying. You don't want that. So, let me switch you around here to make this real easy. So another easy one, and a lot of times it comes off a clinch position, is the person will move to your side. When he's on your side, he's got his hips below your hips, and he's able to lift you on top of that. That's when you run into a throw position and where you're going to go over backwards. What he needs to do is get this leg out and back. So I'm not having my power on the side of his hips. All my power right now is on the side of him. I can pull him over the leg, I can lift him up with the hip, and I can throw him back on his head. What Kelly needs to do is he needs to take this leg and rip it back and get it away from me. Now we're in a different type of position, one where he can swim back in and gain control of my body again, or at least get himself in a defensive position where he's comfortable striking. Be careful with the throws. If you go and you get thrown, here's the tips to don't hurt yourself. Tuck your chin to your chest and let whatever you got out there just smack the ground. Don't try and post or stop yourself, because once you go, you're going. There's very little you can do to stop yourself besides ripping your hips back, pushing the head, and swimming yourself inside. Anytime you feel somebody get up under your hips, if you're worried about getting thrown, sit everything down. Just drop like you're falling asleep. And so you know this technique. Anytime someone gets around you and they're about to launch, you can just drop everything. And just that lowering of your hips will take the power out of his hips, so you won't be thrown that way. That's really one of the best techniques. If you're not comfortable grappling and you're really worried about throwing and somebody gets to the side or gets behind you, just sit down, relax, put everything down, and you really won't have to worry about the throw. Besides the clinch, besides the takedown and the throws and the trips, you also have to worry about the hip toss. The hip toss is a really good, solid technique. Comes from judo, and it's not that hard to avoid, but again, you got to be conscious of what's going on. So the hip toss looks like this. Guy gets inside, drops his hip below yours, and then throws you over his hip. That's why they call it a hip toss. There's a number of ways to counter it. Why don't you come in and hip toss me? I'll show him the ways to counter. So when he comes in and brings his hip, I can't let him throw me over the hip, or I'm gone. So the first thing I can do is I can just shift off and get my hip off of his. Take the control back. A little short motion. We're in a clinching position. Let's start with the clinch, and you can throw your hip in. We're in a clinching position. He throws his hip in at me. I have to immediately throw my hips over here, or he's going to get up and be able to toss me. The other one I can do is, if he is throwing his hip in to get me, I can again sit my hips down so I have control of my hips back, and I can scoop this right up under, and I'll have control of his body. So where I'm avoiding the hip toss and the takedown, I again can put myself in a position where very easily I can take my weight back and whoosh, take him down, avoiding the hip toss altogether. The other thing you can do is what I call a hip toss reversal. And that actually comes from me being in somewhat of a hip toss position. So if we're swimming and I'm trying to get away and do my thing, and I end up in a hip toss position, I can take the hip and throw it at him, and as soon as I get a reaction, I can actually whip all the way around, grab his head, and fling him to the ground. So I threw some energy at him, or maybe he was over there anyway. But either way, I give him some, and then I turn all the way around with the head and the arm, and I redirect his energy the other way. Real simple technique, and let's do it from like here so they can see everything. So regardless of how you get in the position, because you'll be in these positions all day long if you're trying to avoid the takedown. If I'm over here, I'll throw the hip at him, wham, and I'll get a reaction. As soon as I get any kind of reaction, no matter how small, I'm going to take my right leg back, and I'm going to turn all my energy to his head and his arm. Grab him just like this. Try and wing him down. Try and redirect and spin his energy around. The good thing about it is you have big circles that create a lot of energy and a lot of power. And it's very fast. But you have to do it in succession. Even if I don't want to go down, I still have to throw my hip at him to make him think that he needs to move. And when he moves, then I can take advantage of it. That's the hip toss, and that's the reversal to the hip toss. Here's the good stuff. Tips, tricks, and cheats. We're going to show you some little nifty things that will help you avoid a takedown and give you a little better insight into how to avoid it and how to disrupt your opponent when he's trying to force that takedown on you. First one is balance. Balance is the key to doing all these things. He has to balance his energy and bring it towards me, whether reaching or shooting. And if there's any small ways I can disrupt it, I can stop what he's doing or direct it so it's too difficult for him to get the power he needs to take me down. We did some movement with the head, screwed with the head. We also did some movement of the shoulder, changed the shoulder so they didn't have the same power. Here's another one for you. You'll like this one, especially if you're kind of rough like me. Step on his foot. When he goes to do something, or especially to retreat, step right on top of it, and then push him one. That's a great one. The other thing you can do is step around his foot. So if we're wrestling and doing our thing, if I step on the other side of his foot, Now it's harder for him to pull his foot away, and I can do the same thing again. I can give him a little push. Those ones are really good. Other things you can do with the balance. If I pull something, look where his balance goes. So just in here jostling and wrestling around, we've done a little pushing. Now I can do some pulling, and I can manipulate his balance this way. Just enough so that he doesn't have it focused and aimed towards me. That's what you want to do. The other thing you can do is I can fake like I'm going to go for his body, even if I don't care to go for a takedown. I can change levels, make an intention, and instead of doing anything, just give him a good push. It does so much to a person's balance, focus, and concentration when you do one of these little things to them. A lot of times it'll take them right out of the game and make them rethink about that takedown. Here's a tip for you, and a good one. Hand control. Don't let anyone grab your hands or your wrists and control them. It's kind of hard to grab someone's hands. I'll give you a technique on how to hold it too. Make a circle with your finger. Put that over the bone. Don't worry about the rest of your hand. That'll come into play later. But put the circle around the wrist and clamp. I got really good control of his hand. I can push, pull, lift, maneuver his body around. He cannot let me have this hand control. The real tip is don't let anyone hold your wrist. If he grabs my wrist, I got to swing out immediately. Because anytime he gets any kind of grab on me, he's going to get some control and be able to mess with the balance and mess with my body again. Especially if he's stepping on one of my foots. If he pulls one of these and he's got my foot, he's really going to jack me up. Don't let anyone hold your hand. Don't let anyone hold your head. If he comes for your head, move it off. Push it off. Don't let anyone hold your elbow. He reaches in here and holds my elbow. Don't do it. That's the first thing that's going to get you wrapped up in that takedown and get you deep before you can control the distance and make good decisions. So again, as soon as someone has the ability to touch you, they have the ability to take you down. So never let them have hand control. Don't let them hold a hand or two hands or your arm or anything else. Avoid the whole thing. The second he reaches for my hand, I'm going to either grab his hand or move it out of the way. You can't let anyone grab onto your body and begin manipulation of you. It's just not good. Okay, here's a good cheat. I don't know if it's a cheat. It's a basic element of wrestling. But if you don't know how to wrestle, it becomes a cheat for getting it down. Head snaps. If I can snap his head down, I can really change the balance and energy of his body. So again, we're in here doing our thing, whatever. If I can get anywhere on the head, watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my whole body and I'm going to throw it backwards. And the last thing I'm going to do is pull his head down with that weight. So if I can get anywhere on his head, I'm going to go and rip that head down. One hand, two hands. Two hands is always best. But I've taken his body and I've put all of my weight onto his head. So now his head is driving forward. And if you're a striker and you want to strike, this is the time, because he'll be all bent over and in a non-powerful position. So again, if I can get in here and get anywhere on the head, watch my lower body. I'm going to throw it backwards, wham, and I'm going to rip everything down and throw him into this hole. Now, if you want to grapple, you want to be on top in a controlled position, this is the perfect one. I can snap him down and look where I'm at. I'm right on top of him and right in that ready position and being active. The important things to know about your snap is you can't just pull him down, because you'll be pulling him down to your feet. When you pull him, throw everything back. Throw everything back like you're sprawling. Throw him in that hole. Once he's in that hole, you can do whatever you want. Head snaps are great. Head snaps are the opposite of what we were doing earlier with the moving of the head, redirecting him, jamming his head up. So you can add those two sort of as a combination of attacks. I can push him up, and if he gets too close to me, I can throw him in a hole, throw him on the ground with that head snap. I like that one. Yeah, that's a really good one. The other one I want to show you, and it's a really good for wrestling, is the arm drag. This is one of the reasons why you can't let anyone get hand control on you. Because here's how the arm drag works. I grab the arm or the wrist, and my second hand reaches through the elbow. And while I'm reaching, I'm going to step. So look where I went. All the way past him and on the side of his body, which will make it really easy for me to grab in a clinch or a body lock and throw him over. Let's do it over here so they can see this. So I grab the wrist. Don't let anyone have wrist control. Grab the wrist. I'm going to reach inside. As I'm reaching inside, I'm going to step forward and pass his body. Now look what I got. I got the hip. I got the arm. I can do whatever I want to him. Arm drag. Really, really simple. Here we go. Grab the wrist. Grab it, back of the tricep, elbow. Step through when I pull. It looks like this. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. I'm all the way through and past his body. Once I'm there, you can do whatever you want. You can trip, cut, lift. Really, you're on the side of him. You can really manipulate him. Do some arm drags on me. You can't let anyone grab your wrist. You can't let them have hand control, because once they get hand control, they're just going to develop it into themselves inside. Can't have it. Don't let them hold the wrists. But if you want to hold the wrist, elbow, step, arm drag. That one's a good one. So that brings us to the end of our program for avoiding the takedown and controlling the takedown. There's a couple points I want to stress. Make sure you have a partner when you're working on takedowns, working on the wrestling techniques, and a willing one at that. You got to make contact. You got to tussle. You got to run. You got to swim. Practice the techniques. It will take some time, but play with it. Jostle with it. If you want to avoid the takedown, the principles that we've just taught are very sound. They explain almost every takedown there is. If you understand the principles and what's going to happen, the techniques to escape them are very simple. Get your body out, get your hip out, get yourself away, and get yourself safe. I know if you practice these techniques, they'll definitely work for you.